Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to see you guys here for our webinar. I'm Veronica. I'll be the moderator, and I'm with RSC. So as you guys know, we're going to be talking about how leaders report faster and strategize better with holistic asset tracking. And those are a lot of really fancy words to say that we're going to be talking about how to track both interior and exterior assets from one platform. So you can get this really beautiful holistic view and get a lot of information in one place. A lot of really good strategic information. So with that, I will take you through our agenda. We're going to have some quick introductions to our panelists, and then Bob is going to take us through applications and options to be able to track interior and exterior assets. And he'll go over a case study that we've had here at RSC. After that, we'll turn the time over to our panelists so that they can talk about their case studies. And then we'll go into a panel discussion and audience questions and conclusions. And we just want to let you guys know that we, here at our webinars, we love to have the interactivity between the audience. So please feel free to raise your hand or enter a question through the questions panel or unmute yourself to ask a question at any time. We love to hear any and all questions, and we're here to help you out and get you answers. So with that, here's the introduction to our panelists. Today we have some really lovely, wonderful subject matter experts. We've got Jessica Soprennett, who is a facilities analyst at California ISO. And you may recognize her from our last webinar. So thank you, Jessica, for being here. We've got Patrick Wallace, who's a lab director at ESRI, and he's going to give us some really good information on ArcGIS indoors and some really exciting stuff. And then we've got Janice Dreyer, who's an account manager here at RSC, and she's going to go through another really awesome case study that we've done here. And then Bob Stephen, our CEO of RSC, who, as you all know and love, has a lot of information to give us. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Bob to take us through our options.
Thank you, Veronica. You go ahead and go to the next slide. We're excited actually about the presentation today. One of the trends we're seeing with many of our clients is the ability to track assets both interior and exterior. And we have implemented at several of our sites interior and exterior asset tracking. And what we're really starting to be extremely successful with the ArcGIS and the indoors applications. What I'm showing here, however, are the three squares show the uniqueness of each of the applications. So under the Archibus, which is mostly an interior application, although it does have some exterior, many of you know we can do maintenance. We do asset tracking, project management, energy management, capital budgeting, portfolio management, and more. And that is unique from ArcGIS and indoors. ArcGIS does provide robust, as you know, for multiple decades, almost 3.5, I believe, exterior roads, utilities, assets, landscapes, demographics, and a heck of a lot more. If any of you have been to the conference, you can see that ArcGIS has a plethora of information that can be tracked on their world maps. And with the introduction of indoors, we now have some unique opportunities that the other applications have not been able to do, Archibus and ArcGIS, and that is wayfinding and some space management, 3D views of floor plans, moves, and more. My point being is that when you combine these three applications together, you can track and have anything you need for your built environment, both interior and exterior, in one application. They can cross-pollinate. We've proven that in multiple clients, and we can go from there. Next slide, please. So the four configurations will show up here in the next slide. The four configurations we have are you can track exterior and Archibus only. We will show a couple of examples of that with California ISO, and Janice will show a larger manufacturing company that's tracking exterior spaces in Archibus. You can track exterior spaces in just ArcGIS and some interior things You could use other applications to do that as well. Or the third one is you can use the ArcGIS, the Archibus geospatial extension, and cross-pollinate all the information. And this is a thing that Patrick and I have done with one of our large clients here in Northern California. We've connected the Archibus geospatial extension, and we are passing our flat floor plans over and our assets over, and they're showing them in their indoors product, which is the fourth one. So the Archibus indoors connector will allow us to pass that information to floor plans and the interior assets, even some exterior assets. So basically, these are your four options. They can be siloed or they can be combined. Next slide. And I believe I'm now going to pass this. Oh no, here we go. This is a large company that we have in Northern California, and they are tracking. This is an Archibus installation of exterior spaces, and they're tracking things like landscaped areas, driveways, parking lots, exterior dining areas, bike racks, charging areas, and a plethora of information. So I'm showing you the Archibus solution. I think at this point in time, I'm going to turn this over to Jessica Soprenet and let her tell you what she's doing with the Archibus application at California ISO. Jessica.
Thank you, Bob. My name is Jessica Soprenet, and I am the Facilities Analyst at California ISO. I use Archibus on a daily basis. 80% of my work comes from Archibus Smart Client. Archibus helps me track my indoor and outdoor assets. Makes life easier. Here's an example of the first floor. I use the floor maps to identify the room type, the room number. I'm able to track historical data from our previous locations. I'm also process my work from against the room type, and I'm able to assign seats to different employees. That it actually includes contractors as well. So tracking the room type does help me see where people need to go. Primarily, I use the indoor floor plan maps to identify and locate equipment. I'm going to actually start locating and identifying safety equipment. Janice, my account manager, and I are working together to locate and identify, and Archibus is going to help me track the maintenance of the safety equipment. Archibus will alert me when to perform preventative maintenance on the safety equipment. So I'm eager to use this tool, this part of Archibus. With my RSC account manager, we will go start tracking and mapping out the outdoors. And the purpose of that is to track the EV charging stations and the emergency call boxes. And once again, those also need maintenance. So Archibus will generate email for me to alert when maintenance is done. And actually, I'll generate a work request. So I'm eager to start with the exterior soon, where we could track our 20 EV charging stations and our emergency call boxes. I'm really eager to start doing that. Archibus does provide real-time data on assets, and I really love that. It makes life easier. If a manager asks questions, I'm able to pull up the reports that I need, because it's whatever good information I provide, it's going to give me good information, and that's why I like Archibus reports and the applications with the floor maps. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Going into another client of ours, last year they decided that they wanted to track their exterior spaces in Archibus in addition to the interior spaces that they have. So this is the first option that Bob mentioned of those four options. They're doing it fully within Archibus. Next slide. So this shows one of their campuses. They've got 3 separate sites so far in Archibus that's fully polylined as an exterior space. As you can see, it's a really large site, so it's a lot of real estate to be tracking. And it makes a lot of sense when a campus is organized like this. It's not just a building that is rented and it's only the building. They have to track the maintenance of the whole area. As Jessica kind of pointed out, parking is an important part of that. And they have a lot of parking spaces that they want to be able to track the numbers of and the maintenance of as well. So they started this to be able to visualize the space and as well track parking spaces, was as well a motivating factor there. They can also see the types of landscape in their square footage because they've assigned the roof types to the different exterior spaces, as you can see on the left there. They are then going to take the maintenance costs for these different types of ground and use chargeback to assign cost back to the groups that occupy the buildings within those sites. It's kind of bringing a lot of extra data into Archibus, where they're already doing all of their interior space planning. It also allows them to have their entire portfolio visible in one application. So it's not a research project every time you need to pull up this information, every time you need the square footage of lawn, or be able to bring up some maps of your exterior space and how it's used. Next slide. So this just shows zoomed in, showing the different parking spaces. Another option that other groups have done is polylining the individual parking spaces so that they can be assigned to individuals. In this case, that wasn't necessary. We've just got equipment markers in there to show different equipment that would require maintenance, like the charging stations, and the asphalt and the type kind of tells us a little bit about the spaces as well. Next slide. And this one just shows an example of where they're going. They're placing equipment markers on their floor plan of their exterior areas to track assets in their location, so that when work is done against them, we've got a location that people can see for these assets. And I think I'll now pass it on to Patrick to kind of show you how this can be integrated with the ArcGIS components.
All right, super, thanks. Next slide. So first, good morning. I'm Pat Wallace. I work at ESRI. We're the world's leading mapping and GIS company, where we pioneer problem solving with GIS to help you see what others can't. I lead the ESRI Built Environment Lab, and I'm here to talk to you about indoor GIS and the products we work with that enable indoor GIS inside of ArcGIS. Next slide. So what do we mean by indoor GIS? It's taking geospatial to a higher scale of precision and resolution, not 1 to 1,000,000 or 100,000 or 1,000, but 1 to 100, a deeper level of precision, not miles or kilometers, but feet and sometimes inches. It's quite simple. We're taking GIS inside of buildings, and instead of mapping counties and cities, we're mapping the smaller spaces of rooms and buildings. Next slide. So indoor GIS supports all the traditional pillars of a GIS: mapping, visualization, data collection and management, analytics, focused apps, and a platform for developers. And it's all rooted on being able to map building interior spaces and the ability to locate things within buildings. It's supported broadly throughout ArcGIS by a variety of products and components that support use cases presented inside of buildings. Next. So I want to talk a little bit about interoperability with ArcGIS. So next slide. So everything that you've seen in the previous slides, we can bring those data directly inside of ArcGIS and ArcGIS Indoors and the Indoors model format. And here, location is the common key connecting that business information in Archibus to one's indoor GIS. And we can do this through a number of approaches, like ETL data from these various systems with tools like FME. We can directly connect to enterprise databases, and we can directly read in a map and read in a map via middleware, which is what the geospatial extension for ESRI is from Archibus. So next slide. So this allows customers to take their floor plan data in Archibus and posit it directly inside of an indoor GIS, right? And customers can create triggers to keep their data up to date inside of ArcGIS Indoors every time floor plan changes are published and synchronized to their Archibus implementation. Next slide. So the geospatial extension for ESRI, consumes these CAD floor plans using the Archibus Smart Plan extension and uses FME and data interoperability to push those data directly into the Indoors model format. So you have this live map that's constantly updated. Next slide. And with those data, we can bring it directly into ArcGIS Indoors. Next. So Indoors is an indoor mapping system for smart buildings. It extends ArcGIS to create an indoor GIS for space and building management. It lets organizations create digital twins of their buildings and campuses for visualization, analysis, and management. And it does it by providing an information model that can be used to digest CAD, BIM, and other sources from systems like Archibus. It includes wayfinding capabilities for navigation inside of buildings and supports the use of indoor positioning technology. It also includes tools for space planning, facilities management, workspace scheduling, and more. Next slide. So here are a few screenshots quickly showing how one could track assets, manage assets in an indoor GIS, right? So once they're there, you can quickly find them. Next slide, by typing directly into the search, right? And then next slide will show you how once you found it in the search, you can automatically zoom through to the map, shuffle to the right floor, and then do things like share that data with a colleague. Or in the next slide, we show how you can navigate from one place on a campus to another to get to that particular asset. In this case, it's an AED, right? So in the next slide, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about another facet of indoor GIS. It's IPS. And so this is an indoor positioning system. Next slide. So indoor positioning systems provide our users with real-time position or BlueDot inside of buildings and facilities. And it does this because GPS doesn't work indoors, right? So it's GPS-like capabilities indoors, and it's used for a lot of use cases like indoor navigation, tracking, like sharing your location, like with technical staff, and a lot of more use cases. And it's available through all of our mobile applications, right? Like the Indoors mobile app, Field Maps, Survey 123, and you can roll your own with our SDK. And this is incredibly powerful. So this is pretty much what I wanted to present, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So next slide, and thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. So we'll go to our panel discussion now, where we'll ask each of our panels a series of questions just to understand the benefits. And I think before I do that, actually, let's pause for some audience questions. Are there any questions from our audience members? Please feel free to raise your hand, put it in the questions chat, and mute yourselves.
Veronica and Golson, this is Bob. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So just a point here, I cannot see the attendees nor the question box. So is that capable for me to be able to see if there's questions coming through in the questions box?
You should be able to see. I can see the questions panel.
Okay.
Continue.
Let's.
All right. Okay. Okay. It doesn't look like there are any questions from our audience members. So let's go ahead into our panel discussion. So, Bob, Patrick, Janice, Jessica, not in that particular order, what was the impetus for implementing an outdoor-indoor solution at the case studies that you've talked about?
Well, I can start, Bob, and chime in, you know, as needed. Well, I mean, the use case for our customer was a global security use case, and for their operators in the field, as well as for planning events. A lot of these events are happening on site, and their sites have pretty complicated built environment, a lot of buildings, a lot of interior space, and that included the connective tissue between buildings as well, right? So, you know, security operators don't care that they're inside or outside. They care that they're getting their job done, and they need to be able to find the safety and security equipment that's needed to do that job, as well as to manage incidents, as well as you know, execute, you know, inspection workflows. So to do that, they needed a comprehensive mapping solution that included these both indoor and outdoor environments, and this customer already had implemented Archibus, and they already had a lot of these data, you know, recorded in floor plan format in Archibus. So, you know, the novel thing that we were able to do is digest that, aggregate it into like one seamless map, right? As well as to let the customer manage additional equipment that had never been in the Archibus system to begin with, but to be consumed, you know, through Archibus APIs and templates, you know, if the customer wants to do, you know, add these additional data in the future. Bob?
Yeah, I'm not assigned to a client presentation here, so I'm going to kind of go vision here. Yeah. What I'm seeing, and Jessica talked a little bit about that, is a single work order system. You know, the ability to deal with your assets in an exterior space the way you do on an interior space. The California ISO has been doing work orders for over a decade within Archibus application, preventive maintenance on demand, and it's going very, very well. And now that they're starting to realize that, you know, like the electrical vehicle charging stations have maintenance requirements. Their lights in the parking lot have maintenance requirements. Oftentimes the backflow preventer to the building may need, or to at least the landscape or the building may need to have some maintenance to it. So I see that as kind of future vision for having a one-stop shop, what I call it, a one-stop shop, both interior and exterior. Mm-hmm. Jessica, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but anything else that would be your impetus for doing this?
No, no, you're not putting words in my mouth, but it's funny because that's how I use Archibus, one-stop shop. So if somebody asks me about a room, what's room 1, what assets are in there, I can go in there instead of, hold on, let me check my invoices. So I'm using Archibus as one area, and so I'm inputting that information in Archibus. So if somebody who needs to know about room 1, they'll know, oh, there is a AED, or there is a wheelchair there, or there is something there, they'll be able to see it. They don't need me to find this information. They could find it themselves. So I'm eager to do the outdoor and indoor with the charging stations and the emergency call boxes. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. The motivation was really similar for this other client as well, as kind of, yeah, one-stop shop. They've already got their interior space. They want to be able to see their exterior space as well. The initial project of this was for getting counts of parking spaces, but their other goals are getting the chargeback square footages for maintenance costs for exterior space, so that they can charge those to the departments that use the buildings on those sites. And then also being able to review pavement versus permeable space on a campus is really a cool thing that you can do when you have that information all in one place. I'm curious for our attendees, if anyone who is, I also can't see who's here, but do your organizations have a particular goal for using exterior space, or getting into it if you haven't already, or how are you using it?
All right, let's stay with our panelists while we're solving the technical issue here. What solution did you implement and why? What was the first solution you guys implemented and why? So let's start with Janice, and we'll go to Jessica, and then we'll go to Patrick.
Yeah, so far this client has stayed within Archibus because it's the tool that they already own and it is the one that they're already trained on. So they were able to implement this with very little additional support. They're just polylining a floor plan as they would for an interior space. But they're using, they have created with our contribution, exterior room categories and types. And within Archibus, what exterior room categories and types can do is they can be excluded from space calculations. So if you've got them set up correctly with the super category of other and like not part of, not included in the totals, they'll be excluded from those numbers for interior space, so it doesn't affect your interior reporting. But you do have those totals as exterior spaces. So they thought about that and polylined the different hardscape and softscape room types within hardscape and softscape room categories, so that they're tracking that information and then they can report on that information so that they can know the permeability and they know where and how many square footage of different types of ground they have.
Okay, Jessica?
What solutions did you implement and why? We started with the safety equipment. I started to identify the AEDs. I chose that because actually, for example, myself, I'm here sometimes alone, like on a Friday, and God forbid I need to perform CPR. At least I literally know where the AEDs are at and I could save a life. I mean, really, that was I was being selfish because I am here alone. I'm like, where are the AEDs? I need to know where they're at if I have to use them. So that was where I'm going to start with safety and just kind of know where they're at. And also with Archibus, it will alert me when they need to perform maintenance, the weekly, the monthly, the annual maintenance on the safety equipment. So it connects together. Thank you.
Great, Patrick?
I would just say there's a few patterns that are emerging in terms of the integration between Archibus and ESRI, and one are to do things that aren't being done now within the Archibus system, but need data coming from Archibus, but in the form of a single seamless, map that's visible at multiple scales. And one would be some of those corporate security and security use cases that I talked about, right? Because you're not managing space, or you're not really executing asset management per se, but you're interested in some of the underlying data as the context by which incidents are occurring, and the context by which they need to quickly find things. So it's a shortcut to data discovery for data that might already be in Archibus. For people in the field, to quickly find things, and for planners for those events to, understand where the nearest resources are and quickly assign people to get the work done. Another would be as an assist, right? Again, as a shortcut to data discovery through location. To facilitate and augment, space planning activities and asset management activities. Whether that's seat assignment or setting up for the hybrid workplace, or just normal day-to-day boots on the ground asset management, right? Like getting to an asset, executing work on the asset, and updating the status of the asset after the execution of that work, because all of these things take place at a real world location.
Very good. Veronica and Golson, there are questions from the attendees. Can you read those to us, please, and let's answer them.
Yes, I was gonna interrupt you guys at a good point. So there is a comment from Corey Ulrich. She says, there are lots of reasons to track outdoor space. Janice, if you recall, we looked at something for our deck parking for large projects. Corey, are you able to unmute yourself and say a little more about that?
I think I am unmuted.
Yeah, we can hear you. The volume up a bit, though.
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I had flipped my microphone up because I was working on something. Yeah, so to be honest, we never got to the point where we implemented this, but we had, prior to COVID, we had a lot of construction going on, and we were using one of our parking areas to store large equipment and supplies for the for the construction. And this is something that is ongoing at the aquarium, right? We build new things, we fix things, we build new exhibits, we do things like that all the time. And we had been looking for a way, this stuff didn't exist back then, if I'm right, this was a few years ago, so that we could block off and make some sort of reservation type thing for that space and block it off so people knew when it was not in service. And I'm thinking that this, if this had been available or something like it had been available back then, we probably would have gone through with that. But you know, there are other reasons too. Like we have vendors that come in and do maintenance on buildings. We call them outbuildings because they're not part of the main aquarium building. And it would be good to be able to track, and many of them are leased, right? We don't occupy them. Someone else occupies them. And so it would be good to be able to track all of their assets and all of their outdoor, you know, their elevators and their green spaces and so on and so forth. So I can see lots of reasons why this would be useful.
Great, thank you. All right.
Those are the questions we have. Yep.
Okay, next question we have on the PowerPoint slide. What's the next one?
Okay. What benefits do you receive from the solution currently?
I can jump in first on this. The benefits that this client has got is they've greatly increased the availability of data on exterior areas. So they've got square footage of the different types of spaces. They can visualize where their assets are, and they can just visualize the exterior space as a whole. So before they had just the interior building floor plans, but no way to kind of see the other space that they owned and the extent of it. I think it would be really cool for them to continue and do a ArcGIS solution as well, because I think those, at least, like even if they go as far as the indoors as for that, being able to see your assets, your buildings on a map that then can bring up the different levels of utilities. There's like utility maps you can show under buildings like that are really cool. So that's kind of a direction that it could go in that would be very neat.
And to build on that, Janice, Veronica, if you could go back, I think, to the second to the last slide of Patrick's, I'll guide you there if it's not quite the right one. I want to really emphasize this point.
Pause real quick and let me go find it. Second to last.
It's the one that shows the ability to get from one building to another building with a wayfinding capability. If you can get to that slide. One of the things that we identified a long time ago, yeah, here we go, with the ESRI indoor product was this, what I call a BlueDot solution. This is like Google Maps. And this was demonstrated to me about 5 or maybe even 6 years ago, and it actually functioned then. And I know that this is something that Archibus does not have. They may be working on it, but they do not have this capability. It has been asked for from us for at least 6 years, and this is done. And so if you have any need or want for a wayfinding solution, the indoors solution already has it. It's completed. It functions. It basically has some really nice automation where once the floor plan is in place, it will automatically, with an action, you can automatically go in and track it'll actually create the routes, the segments of the routes. And so it knows the GIS positioning of each asset and can transition from outdoor to indoor and indoor to outdoor. And I actually think this is one of the largest benefits of combining these two applications together.
Yeah, I mean, today you can see things inside of Web Central, right, Bob? Like if you've implemented the geospatial extension for ESRI, but it doesn't include, you know, all the capabilities that you see here. So there's certainly, you know, room to add more capabilities and evolve that integration point. Like for example, you see like the share button on the information panel to the right of the screenshot. And that's really critical for our customers in terms of getting mind share on the work that they're executing together, because they can literally share an indoor or outdoor location or even a route, right, with their colleagues, and then their view of the map will open to that exact same view, right? So in terms of getting work done and seeing the same problem, to share insights, we find that kind of fundamental for our customers.
And I, you know, the use case you just described, we got an emergency. Let's say that a traffic light has been taken down by a truck, and you know your craftspersons are having a hard time finding it. If there's a person there and they can share that location, they can geo-reference to it and get to it easier and faster. And I believe that there is a function where there can be things submitted from John Q. Public. I think there's a company called Excella that provides a city type or a county type or even an entity type to John Q. Public to basically say, hey, there's a pothole in the road here. Here's a picture of it, and it's got the georeferencing. So really, some really nice stuff.
Okay, I will get us back to our question. Okay, great. Let's go to our next question. What advice would you give when implementing an indoor or outdoor solution, panelists?
Start with maybe Jessica, and then go to Janice, and then go to Patrick.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
This is Jessica. What advice would you give? How do we start, Janice? First of all, what are you trying to use it for? And then also just, for me, to be honest with you, I actually I got a list of all the AEDs, serial numbers, when it was last service. I also got the invoice. So all that information I'm getting from the invoice, I'm going to start implementing it into the asset tracking area and just start inputting it in there. So for me, it's old school pen and paper and invoicing, and when was the last time it was serviced, and then I'm able to set up the PMs from the last time it was serviced. So that's how I'm starting it, very old school, invoice paper and asking the guys, when was the last time? And they're like, oh, I think it was last year. So that's how I'm doing it. And then I'm implementing all that information into facilities views, Archibus.
Yeah, like I think Jessica, what kind of summarizes it for both California ISO and the other client is gain the understanding of what information you want to get out of the system. So, and then find out what information you have to put in, so that you can plan what you need to collect to get started. So in your case, we want to do maintenance against the AEDs, so we need to collect all of that information by doing a floor walk, by talking to people about the type of information they need. And as well with the exterior floor plans, we're kind of in the midst of it right now. We don't have all the drawings of exterior spaces that we need, and tracking that down, figuring out what information you want to show. Like, are you going to be using the hardscape, softscape that the other client of mine is doing? Do you want to track trees as assets? Do we have that information, and where can we get it from? Is kind of the first step. Anything you want to add to that, Jessica, or do you just agree?
No, I agree. You're right, because there are we going to track the trees? Are we not going to track the trees? Especially in Folsom, being in a historic area, we can't just chop down trees. We literally need to get a permit from the city. So questions like that, you need to gather to decide what you're going to input in the Archibus.
Yeah, and like when you're getting started as well, the thinking about what you want to implement kind of affects your approach. So as the room types, if you're doing the Archibus solution, the room types that you need to capture the types of space that are needed, coming up with that list is a big part of the planning, so that you're only doing that effort once. And then deciding if your exterior space should be an entirely separate site plan, or if it should be attached to each building. So if your buildings are not part of kind of like a larger campus and they're off on their own, maybe your exterior space doesn't need to be a separate floor plan. It can just be the exterior spaces outside of the building. And I think Corey, at the aquarium, we've got at least some paths in some of the areas that are exterior, just as part of the floor plan, but they are exterior spaces.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. For me, I think at a higher level, I always like to start with what are the 3 reports or data points you need to capture that will make your life easier and help you make strategic decisions. Both these applications can track everything, all the way down to toothpicks. I mean, if we want to track how many toothpicks you have on site or pencils, these systems can do that. The first question is tracking that, is that important to me, and will it make a difference to my business? And if it doesn't, then I would look at the next thing that does it. So again, I think the reports that help you make strategic decisions is where to begin. And then, as you both indicated, capturing that data on paper or Excel spreadsheets is important. And then the third thing I would say is create standards that can be passed between applications. What do we call a room? What kind of room categories do we have that are copacetic between both applications? How do we name people? How do we name assets? Do I put this in a group of HVAC? Do I put this in a group of life safety? Do I put this in a group of travel? How do I group these things? So that's how I would begin an implementation, is kind of think holistically about what are the data points you need to do in a report that makes strategic decisions. Patrick, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, mine may be, mine build off of that, but these are just things that I found. Like, one, there is amount of work that you need to plan for, right? A lot of customers, they don't have source engineering data for all their buildings, for example, or if they do have it, it's not structured very well. So if you want to accrue these benefits, there is a kind of an entry level of effort that you need to plan for, right? It can be significant for some customers. For one of our shared customers, we actually went out and we scanned every building with LiDAR to create new BIM data to get the project going. So you'll see that, right? When you're creating this kind of portfolio of location data to do these advanced or to gain access to these advanced capabilities to support critical workflows like the ones we described, you're going to need good reference data, right? You almost go back to kind of survey principles. You need good ground control, so you're going to need like a good base map, aerial imagery, at a facility scale, right? I'm talking about 3 inches or less, so you can see corners of buildings, line things up in the right place, because for goodness sake, you don't want to be a year into your implementation and find out that things are in the wrong place. That's not a good position to be in. So take care of first principles, and plan accordingly. And you'll find also that you'll have to name a lot of things you never named before, right? Like if you want to find something like a particular AED, you may not have even named that thing in the past. So what kind of common name can you give it to actually find it? And like when you read the name in the system, to give you a sense of where it is, right? So you have to kind of change your way of thinking about things to a way in which you can better manage these things and find them and use them. So that's what I would add.
Very good. Any questions from any of the attendees? Okay. Next question. Oh, that's it? All right. Any questions from the attendees at all? Anything you want to see or know or want to know about this? Okay. Veronica, anything, closing statements? Any of the panelists' closing statements?
This is Jessica.
Yeah,
I just want to say I use Archibus Smart Client to be my one-stop shop, and I really love this product. It makes my life easier. Like I said, I use 80% of my work does come from Archibus, and it's just a easy using tool to help sort the information. And I'm looking forward to making sure that we map the outside once again, so people won't have to wait. Oh, we can't get information because Jess has it. So once people who have access to Archibus, they can get the information that they need themselves. Looking at the map, oh, this room has this, or the outside, here's the charging station. So I'm looking forward to working with Janice to get that set up for us. It's a great software to just keep you organized and give you real-time data. That's another thing I like about this product, real-time data. Thank you.
Great, great. Anything from anyone else? Anyone from the attendees? Questions, thoughts, concerns?
I just want to say I appreciated Patrick joining us today. At RSC, we're really excited about continuing and learning about the ESRI solutions. We've implemented it for one client, and we really want to do more. So any other clients on the line that are interested and want to talk about it, I know there's at least one that we've started the discussion with. I think a lot of this is kind of the future where things are going. So it's a really great solution to think about. And just let us know if you have other questions. Feel free to follow up with me or Bob.
Yeah. Thank you for the shout out. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate the invite. And yeah, I think it's an exciting space to be in, and looking forward to learning more from joint customers. Right. I'm always, people are always doing something interesting that I could never have thought of myself, in an indoor context, in a campus context. So it's exciting work for us.
Great. Yeah, and thanks to everyone for participating and coming to this webinar. Again, our emphasis is going to be a one-stop shop for all assets inside your organization. We're going to be rolling out a product called Reals, R-E-A-L-S, which is RSC ESRI Archibus location synchronization, and that product will be out here shortly from the success we're having doing indoor outdoor. So just be prepared for that, look for that, and If you have any questions, please feel free to email them to us. We will be sending out a survey right after this. As soon as this webinar closes, the survey will be sent to you. Please feel free to make any comments or thoughts, or even subjects that you want to discuss in the future. We're often looking for that. So appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.